Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with a track guide for the FIA Manufacturers race that is on Wednesday. It's the reverse version of the new Saint Croix track that was added a few months back. It's the B version and it's actually a fairly tricky track to fully master. It doesn't take too long to learn the basic corners, but there isn't many braking reference points on some of these corners, so you really do need to really fine-tune your braking and get it spot on. I went on last night. I've managed to get a fairly okay lap, and I managed to get, it took me about half an hour to obviously concentrate. I did stream out when I did my first practice. That was just basically to get an idea of the corners. Wasn't really concentrating 100%, obviously with streaming. Went back on in the night, put a bit more concentration in, and really started to hook these corners up and understand where the braking points is, where it's better to brake a little bit earlier. You know, this track really is about momentum, braking a little bit earlier, keeping it smooth on the apex, because a lot of these corners are off camber and unsighted, so if you go in too fast you end up just sliding the car wide, and that is not good because then you can't get on the power early enough. It really is important to really concentrate on braking a fraction earlier and getting better exit speeds. You know, the old saying, which is so, you know, it's so meaningful, is slow in, fast out, and that is the case at this track, very much so. So got on there, did an okay lap, and we're going to go through a track guide. I'm going to point out some of my braking points and some reference points that you might not notice when you're obviously driving, that because there isn't always the boards like there is there 200, 150. Some of the corners, these corners on this track, there is nothing there to point to really pay attention to. It's just about picking a point and trying to just do it visually a lot of the time. That's how I tended to do it, and I managed to get a fairly good lap in. So we're going to start this track guide going through the final corner. Make sure you get a nice clean exit obviously on the start of your lap. You don't want to hit the wall and compromise your exit speed from that corner, and you speed over the start finishing line. So just going into the first braking zone, we're going to be looking for the 100 board. You can see there I actually brake a little bit past this 100 board, and it's just fractionally short of where the green Astro starts on the right hand side. Just there, you see first braking inputs are going in there, and it's just before, pretty much as we approach that green bit of tarmac on the right hand side. Then you're going to chuck it in very early, and this is a corner again where you don't want to carry too much speed through. You want to be able to hit the apex of this corner, so slower in and then on the throttle really early. And you see the advantage of getting on the throttle nice and early, as we look back at the Ghost, is it just gives you a better pull out of the corner. Now this corner is a fairly tricky one. You're unsighted, you can't see the apex, and you're going to pretty much chuck it in at this point, really throw it into the corner, into the blind bit of the corner, and you want to hit the apex nicely there. And then just about now you're going to come off the throttle. You'll notice I briefly lift off the throttle to get the weight transfer forward. This enables the front end to grip more, and then you can put the throttle fully back on, and then that enables you to clip that apex of this right hand corner there nicely and keep on the power all the way through this corner. And again, you want to try and get your left hand front tyre now to clip that apex to give yourself more angle into this next right hand corner while attacking it with high speed. And again, you're going to do a very similar thing to the corner 4, a little lift off the throttle. This just again enables the weight transfer to go to the front of the car and gives you more grip on the front end. And then you're back on full throttle, accelerating out the corner. You can see I did it a little bit better on that Ghost, but ran a little bit further wide, and then I couldn't brake as well for the next corner. So now I'm in a better position to brake early. You see that little bit of tarmac on the left hand side is kind of a braking reference. The braking is just going on at this point, just past that colour change in the tarmac. And you see now the advantage of braking earlier and getting a cleaner line into this corner and turning in at that point of the apex and trying to take a nice early apex. I slightly miss the apex, but that's not too bad because it enables me then to early upshift into third and get a nice clean exit. And you'll see the advantage again pulling away from the Ghost because I brake a little bit earlier, and that enables me to get a cleaner exit from the corner. So again, slow in, fast out is so important on this track, especially with this long straight where overtaking is going to be so important. It's going to be really important to get yourself a good exit speed from that slow corner. Now we're going to go into this really tricky fast left hand corner, and it's very similar to when you do it the reverse way. You want to try and hug, well I like to hug the inside apex of this corner, braking fairly early you see, and down into third gear, and try and hug this barrier on the left hand side as much as possible. If you need to play the throttle through that corner, just give it a little lift off and then back on the throttle as early as you can, and all the way up the hill now. And again, an unsighted blind corner, there's no real braking reference point. You see my first braking is going in at this point there where the arrow is showing you, and then I'm going to try and chuck it into where that arrow is pointing because it's an unsighted corner, you cannot see it, and it's slightly off camber again. So be careful not to carry too much speed through it, because if you do, there is a nightmare situation that barrier, if you hit that, it will pretty much stop you dead and give you a lot of damage. So try not to push the limits too much through that corner in the race situation. It could really affect your performance. You know, damage at that point is going to be a disaster. So going into the next braking point, I actually spotted this. There's a bit of white barrier there. That bit of white barrier is my reference point where I'm going to hit the brakes, brake nice and early. Again, I like to brake early because it stops the front end rolling. I don't go down to second gear, stay in third gear with this Porsche. Some cars are going to be different depending on the car you're in. And then on the power nice and early, you see, because I've not gone too aggressively into that corner, the front's not sliding. That enables me then to get on the throttle nice and early and carry more speed on the exit. Going into the next corner, you're going to see the braking reference point. I use the curb on the left hand side. You're going to see the start of the apex to the curb there. That point there where that little bit of green tarmac is before the curb starts, that's kind of my braking reference point. Down into third gear, and again, try not to carry too much speed through this corner. It's a tricky one. It likes to give you the confidence that you can put the power down, makes you think it's not as tight as it is, and then by the time you've put the power down, it can be too late. You see, even with being cautious there, I use up pretty much all the track and don't run too far wide. So just be cautious on that corner because it can catch you out. And then we're going to go into the final corner, a very important corner. Braking just past the 100 board, you see there. Use it. You see the brake reference just past the 100 board, and it's better again to brake a little bit early down his third gear. And at this point, you want to get your car so it's half on the green bit of tarmac, half on the actual tarmac for the track. And this will enable you then not to pick up a penalty because not all four wheels are over that white line. And on the throttle nice and early, giving you a nice clean exit all the way to the finishing line. And we're going to go over the line for a 2 minutes 06.8, which actually put me to, I think it was P5 last night. I could have pushed this more. I'll show you in a minute. The optional, I only spent about 45 minutes pushing this time trial, maybe an hour or so, but it put me up to P5 on a 206.8. Reasonably happy with that. That's all I really wanted to do, just get the basics of the track. You can see my potential at 206.6, so 2 tenths faster than what I've done. So there is potential to easily, I actually on one lap which I didn't finish, which would have probably got my potential down to a 206.5, I was way ahead of the Ghost, and I just messed up the last sector. I didn't brake early enough after the bridge, and it just slid wide, lost me about 2-3 tenths, and I think it was heading for a 206.5 to 6, so that lap would have been really nice if it would have hooked that lap up, but unfortunately didn't manage it. You can see now, watching the lap from behind the car, you can really see how I'm swinging it into the corners, braking early and concentrating on exit speed. It's so important. Anyway, I'm going to let you watch this lap from the rear of the car so you can see the lap played out from that view if some people are using that view. And I'll hopefully be back. I might be streaming later today, it's a possibility, but I'm not too sure if I'm going to have time. I wanted to get this track guide out first and rendered, then uploaded, obviously because it's on tomorrow. I wanted to make sure it's up nice and early for so every different nation can obviously use the benefits of this track guide. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I am uploading videos and streaming pretty much every day, so that will continue for a long time now. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be back very soon.